Hi, I'm Adam, VP Innovation at SquaredUp, and today I'm going to cover our new SharePoint plugin. For a long time at SquaredUp, we have used our business data alongside technical data in our dashboards, and we've often had to do this using Web API in Dashboard Server, the Web API plugin in Cloud, and the Microsoft Graph API is not necessarily the easiest thing to navigate, especially when you want to get data out of, let's say, an Excel spreadsheet. It always takes a lot of effort to figure out exactly which calls to make. So with that in mind, and with a few requests from our community as well, we decided to put together a plugin that would just do this seamlessly. So I'm going to walk you through how the plugin works. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about how we wrote the plugin and a new author name that you'll be able to see in our plugin gallery pretty soon. So let's start with just a quick walkthrough of how to set up the plugin. So here we are on a dashboard, and let's say that we want to add in a little bit of business data alongside this technical data coming straight out of our incident management system. In this case, this is just the sample data plugin, so nothing you're seeing here is sensitive, of course, but let's jump in and look at how the plugin is added. So we've used the same authentication that we use for Azure and Microsoft 365. So if you just search for SharePoint files, you'll find the plugin here. And I'll tell you a little bit more at the end about SquaredUp Labs and how this plugin was built. The two options are pretty straightforward. You can either sign in with Microsoft Entra ID, or you can provide your own application registration from Entra ID. This is good if you want to really limit down exactly which SharePoint sites the plugin can access, for example. But for an easy, quick demo, I'm just going to use Entra ID, and I'm going to sign in just as myself. So I've signed in with Entra ID, and I've come back to the plugin page, and you can see here a new checkbox has appeared. So it's showing that I'm logged in as myself, and I can optionally choose to include my own OneDrive. Now, this is only available when using Entra ID. With client credentials, there is no individual user, but with Entra ID, you can choose to add your own OneDrive. This is maybe useful if you create a dedicated service account and you just want to put your dashboard files in its OneDrive. As an individual user, I may not want everybody in the organization to be able to access any of the files in my own OneDrive. So in this case, just to draw your attention to the ability to restrict access to data sources. This is available with any plugin, but just to call it out here. So in this case, I'm just simply going to remove the everyone group from here, making me the only person who can use this plugin. I'm going to hit test and add, and we will just check that we can connect to OneDrive, that we can connect to SharePoint, and then we'll add the plugin into my workspace. You can see that the plugin has 7 data streams, and these represent different types of files that you can access through the plugin. So CSV and Excel will give you access to the raw data in those files. The rest of these use a graph feature that generates a temporary embed link for the file. So we can show an image, we can show a PDF or a PowerPoint, you can embed videos and Word documents, and we'll just render those files directly in your dashboard. So if you're accessing raw data, for example, an export from a finance system or an export from a legacy monitoring tool, CSV and Excel are going to be a great place to start. The request from our community was quite simple. They really loved the CSV plugin, but they just wanted Microsoft Auth so that they could access that CSV stored in SharePoint without having to share that file publicly. So we've added the plugin. Let's just jump onto a new dashboard and we'll quickly walk through how each of the data streams works. They're all pretty similar and they're all nice and straightforward. So let's go into SharePoint files and we'll start with CSV. Now, the first thing you have to do is decide where that file is going to come from. So we're going to pick a site. Now, this is giving me access to all the SharePoint sites that I have. And because I turned on OneDrive, I optionally have this OneDrive option as well. So I'm going to choose OneDrive, and then I can pick a parent folder. In this case, I have a folder called samples, which is full of samples just for this demo. And I can then choose file. The list here will be filtered by the file type, in this case CSV, so I can see my CSV file. And in the background, you'll see the data starts to load as soon as I've chosen the file. There it is there. Let's just move into this view so that we can see the data while we're playing with the plugin settings. On the Advanced tab, you have very similar options to the existing CSV plugin. You can optionally turn on that the first row contains a header, and then the tile will use those headers as column names. You can skip comment lines, you can skip rows that are blank, you can choose to skip the first n number of rows, and if your file isn't actually comma separated, perhaps it's using semicolons, you can choose your custom delimiter. So this is very much similar to the existing CSV plugin. There's my data there. Now, if I wanted to use, let's say, a line graph, I have a duration column. Let's assume these are all milliseconds for my build pipeline runs. The data stream being able to pick up that the data here is actually a number. It thinks it's just text. So let's just quickly modify that, and we will choose the existing shape for milliseconds. I'll leave it on no decimal places and hit save, and we can now use our line graph. Great. So that's the data coming straight out of the CSV file we're using Microsoft Auth. The Excel data stream gives you very similar functionality. It lets you render raw data that you can then manipulate in a dashboard in a normal way using a whole set of visualizations. So in this case, let's again go to my OneDrive. Let's go into my samples, and this time we will get back an Excel file. So the options here are slightly different to CSV. The Excel data stream first asks you to choose whether you want to select a worksheet or a table, so very standard sort of Excel terms. In this case, I'll go for worksheet. This file happens to have two, so I can choose. I'll go for builds. It's that same data in my CSV file. And I then have a couple of extra options. So you can see here in the background, we've gone fully Excel style with this. So the columns are using letter values rather than just general names or other placeholders. So we have A, B, C, but in this case, I do actually have a header row. So I'm just going to turn that option on. That first row now becomes the name of my columns. Now, one thing that's interesting with the Excel data stream is that Excel provides a bit more metadata to us. So we already know that duration is a number in this case. I don't have to go in and reshape the column into milliseconds. It's already come up as a number. Now, it is just a generic number. I may still want to choose to come in and edit this and set it to milliseconds so that it drops the decimal places and it has the little MS suffix. But in this case, that's exactly what I wanted to get. That's the data, same data coming straight out of my Excel sheet. I'll just show you the Excel data stream one more time, and we'll use the table option instead. So if I just go back into my OneDrive and go back into my samples folder and then pick my Excel file again, this time we'll choose table. Now, table in this context is just a normal Excel table where you select an area on a worksheet. You can choose insert table. You can give that table a name. Those tables are then available through the plugin. So in this case, my sheet does have a table built in, just called table 1. You may have many tables across many worksheets. The default for this row contains headers is turned on because typically in an Excel table, the first row will always be your headers. If that's not the case, though, you can just simply turn that off. But again, already we've gone straight into having a working tile with data. It knows it's a number. It knows this is a date. We've been able to build a line graph pretty straightforward. So that's a pretty nice way to be able to access data. I think Excel gives a richer experience than using just CSV data. But if CSV is what is the file type that you have access to, again, nice and straightforward. Let's just very quickly take a look at some of the more interesting sort of embed options. These, in my view, are really great just for adding context into a dashboard. So let's say, for example, you just want to add your company logo. Now, obviously, we already have an image tile. You can add an image nice and straightforward, either uploading it or providing a URL. But again, this just gives you really easy access to images that are already stored inside your SharePoint environment. So let's just search for the image I want. It's just that one. We'll hit done. And we'll get the file. Now, by default, this renderer from SharePoint has this OneDrive banner along the top. Now, that's fine. It will only show in certain situations. If you make the tile smaller, the banner will typically disappear. We don't have any control over this, unfortunately. So, don't hold me to sort of fixing that. But you can typically rearrange the tiles in a way that the header disappears. PDF, I think, is a really cool option. if you've got a very complex dashboard, or say, for example, it's a monitoring dashboard, you expect there to be issues found, you expect that dashboard to always require action. Using the PDF option, I think, is a very powerful way of being able to put those troubleshooting steps on. Your team can own that document, they can keep track of it in SharePoint, they can update it as normal. And I guess this would apply to Word as well. You can go ahead and just pick a PDF file, and again, that OneDrive renderer will come up and the file will be showing. There is one advanced option on this data stream. That's the ability to choose which page loads to start with. So maybe you have a 10-page document, and in this particular context, you always want page 7 to show first. You can still interact with this PDF. You can move around the pages if there are multiple pages. You can zoom in and out. It's quite a rich embed that Microsoft provide here. But in this scenario, I've just got a single page sample document, and I can drop it into my dashboard. Now, again, that's pretty small. You may want to size it correctly. You may want to choose an appropriate font size in the document itself. But in this case, it's a really, really simple way to just add extra written context that can be managed external to Squared Up. So again, a new troubleshooting step comes up, a new error type, just a new note, a new annotation for a report. The team who owns that data can just update the file where they already keep it up to date, and it will always just be correct in your dashboard. So that's an image, that's PDF. I'll go ahead and show you the PowerPoint integration, because again, I think this is a pretty cool way to just add context into a dashboard. So I'll go to my OneDrive again, and I'll go back to my samples, and I'll just grab this simple PowerPoint. No configuration steps here. It's a pretty straightforward integration. But again, it's interactive. So if you have a multiple page, multiple slides, it's very straightforward to just add all of that context straight into a dashboard. Let's sort of blow that up, make it nice and big. So maybe you need to provide that assistance to people to interpret the data that you're showing on the dashboard. PowerPoint, again, is a really simple way. You can add graphics, you can add text, you can embed anything pretty much into a PowerPoint. So a really simple way, again, just to add data, add context, and keep it up to date in the tool where it lives. Internally at Squared Up, we have a Friday wrap-up every week where different teams present on different aspects of work each week. And we do all that through our own dashboarding, of course, but data is often presented in addition to that through PowerPoint. And this is just a really great way to just, again, bring it all together. The last one to call out is probably just video. Again, it's unlikely that you're going to be presenting sort of real life monitoring data, but if you have a file in your SharePoint, again, that explains a troubleshooting step, that explains the data people are seeing, it just gives that added context. You can now go ahead and just add a video into this. So let's just go ahead and pick this recording I made for the tile editor. And again, it's just the embed, but it's that nice sort of familiar SharePoint embed. So again, I can go and drop that into my dashboard, make it nice and big. And then at any point on this dashboard, if I need to know, maybe this tile is going to be called troubleshooting steps, I can just quickly hit play and the video will play in the background, including audio. So it's right there and available to you at any time. If you just want to add that nice little visual walkthrough or explainer for what people are seeing on the dashboard. So in a nutshell, that's the SharePoint plugin. It gives you access to those key file types. I'll go back to just talking for a very brief moment about the author name that you saw in the plugin gallery. So I highlighted that this plugin was from Squared Up Labs, and you'll be seeing a few more of these appearing. Our intention with Squared Up Labs is that it's a community plugin, it's a community author, but it's still the Squared Up team. And the reason that we have chosen to use a sort of an alter ego, if you like, is to give us the ability to use a slightly different process to build these plugins and release them out to you. Now, where you see by Squared Up, you can trust that the plugin was built with extremely high quality. It's been validated. It's been through many stages of QA. We've worked with customers to get feedback. It's very highly maintained. But all of that comes with a cost, right? It takes time to build a plugin. And there are cases where there are simpler efforts that we can put in just to get something out to get that initial feedback. So in this case, with SharePoint files, this is being released under Squared Up Labs because I would love to get your feedback on this plugin. Now, very, very shortly, when you go to a Squared Up Labs plugin, there'll be a new banner appear in the plugin gallery that will give you a direct link over to the feedback page for this plugin. So in this case, feedback.squaredup.com. If you've never seen it, this is our public plugins roadmap. We keep this up to date with all the work the team are doing on new plugins. Anybody can come to this page and suggest a new plugin, and we'll review that and pick it up. And what Squared Up Labs gives us the ability to do is to cherry pick some of the more, let's say the ones that are not quite in the sort of our core space. For example, a SharePoint plugin doesn't necessarily fit into the core of monitoring and observability. But in this case, it's a really, really cool integration, and a number of customers have requested it in the past. It also benefits us internally. So Squared Up Labs is just an alternative way to describe plugins built by Squared Up, but they're in their earlier stages. So in this scenario, if you try out the SharePoint plugin, which I would really, really love you to do, if you have any comments, if you have any feedback, I'd really encourage you to click that link that'll be showing in the plugin gallery. It'll bring you straight into this page where you can leave comments. You can upvote other people's comments. You can see the status. You can see what we're working on. But this is just a really great way to just share your take on what this plugin should do. That's the information that we need, right? We want our community to help contribute to these. Now, in the near future, our community will be better enabled to build plugins themselves. And again, being able to provide feedback to that particular plugin author is a really powerful way to help them build a great plugin for you. So check out the feedback board. Like I said, feedback.squaredup.com. If there's anything on here that you're really interested in, upvote it, leave comments, share what you'd like the plugin to be able to do. Whenever you see those plugins by Squared Up Labs, expect to be able to come to this page and add comments to an existing item. But yeah, otherwise just provide that feedback. That's what we need from you. And as the plugin becomes richer, more mature, with all that added feedback, all those new features, we'll be able to keep rolling that out. And one day that Squared Up Labs may disappear in favor of Squared Up. We may adopt it as a premium plugin owned by Squared Up formally. But in this scenario, limited support, maximum feedback, that's what we're really, really looking for out of this. So that's the SharePoint plugin in a nutshell. It's a really simple way to just get that context onto a dashboard from files that you already have, files that other teams own. Leave the data in their hands, let them update and let them work where they like to work, but be able to just drop that straight to a dashboard with very, very minimal effort. So yeah, again, if you're interested in trying it, it's available right now. Just add it into your environment and connect it up and send me some feedback. I'd love to hear from you. And if there's anything that doesn't work for you, if you have ideas, if there are other file types you'd like to support, just drop a comment straight onto the feedback board, and we'll be able to get onto it much, much quicker. So thanks for checking out this slot. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the sessions.